Tales of Mithrym.
At the Sign of the Running Horse, narrated by Dolynuik, Part 10, Blessing. Ducky ordered a drink and rejoined his friends after Alvin went away. The crowd was somewhat unsettled by recent events, not least to discover there had been a necromancer in their favorite pub. Everybody was interestedly talking about it. It had been over 2 months since Cyrus had joined the staff, and all the regulars had immediately taken a liking to him for his friendly attitude and refreshing manner. Now, they were all exclaiming their shock to think they had been drinking beers poured by a worshipper of Emu. Ducky disliked this new line of conversation. It was far too serious for his liking. He preferred to be dancing with them, and drinking with them, and laughing with them, and certainly not listening to them all talk about how they could have all been poisoned and sacrificed so that Cyrus could please his Dark Lord any time he wanted. On top of that, Alvin's words kept ringing in his ears. They weighed on him. He was confused by this feeling of guilt as he sat among friends in comfort, drinking cold drinks, eating hot food, all while that girl was out there, hostage to a madman. He could be helping out the wardens too. Of course, they probably would not pay him for it, but he knew deep down that he could help. He knew how to hunt and to track, and he could help them track down Cyrus. He could help rescue. She was probably already dead, though, he thought. He sipped at his drink. If she was not dead, then she was almost certainly being tortured by that mad monster out in the dark of the night, which was probably even worse. "Oh, for Ian's sake," yelled Ducky, as he hammered the wooden table with both of his fists. The legs shattered under his assault, and the broken table fell along with all the mugs and plates of food that it had held. His friends all gasped in shock and stared at him. "What in the name of Ian are you doing, you idiot?" howled one of the bartenders, quickly running towards Ducky from the other side of the room, carrying a broom over her head. Ducky stood up and turned to look at her. "Sorry," he shouted, and, smiling, he flung a bag of silver coins towards her. She stopped part way, letting go of the broom and catching the pouch out of the air. "That's for everything," he looked down at the mess, "including the furniture. You can keep the change." Ducky rushed over to get his sword, then ran out the door, leaving everyone gaping and wondering what had possessed him all of a sudden. He ran down the path. Alvin's words. That was what had possessed him, like a ghost. Meanwhile, in the dark of the forest, Derville stood watching Cyrus. Clutching the handle of her small axe, she could not help but wonder what the man was up to. His chanting had become irregular, and he seemed to be absorbed in whatever he was doing with the doll. In the dim light, she could see that he was planting the doll into the hollow of a tree. Though she was not sure why, she knew it couldn't be anything good. She closed her eyes and held the hatchet high in the air. She began reciting a prayer in the dark behind the tree. Invisible in the darkness, a thin black smoke began erupting from the hatchet's handle, and it swirled around the small weapon and onto Derville. Her preparation finished just as Cyrus finished too. She smiled, though. He was well within her range. He turned back round and made to walk back to where he had left her. He paused abruptly, sensing the danger and seeing her coming out from behind a tree near him. She looked calm as she held the axe firmly. He wondered for a moment where she had gotten it, then chided himself for not having searched her first. "So, you slipped your bonds, did you?" he said in the same awful, grating voice, then laughed. "Serves me right for underestimating you." He smiled darkly. Derville gritted her teeth. She kept her distance as she brought the hatchet forward and pointed it at him. "I'm going to shut that foul mouth of yours for good," she hissed. Cyrus chuckled. "Aw, so hostile. Such a great tragedy, yes? Why does everyone hate us so much? We're just innocent, pious men for Emu's sake." "Innocent?" Derville scoffed. Cyrus roared with laughter. "Well, how about this? You come to your senses and behave like a good little hostage." He brought out a pouch and shook it. It made a gentle clanging noise. "And you can have this. 20 gold coins. I'd say that's more than fair for your services." Fury burned in Derville's eyes. As it did, the ground beneath them began to glow as a great circle appeared, surrounding the two of them. Strange shapes, lines, and runes lit the trees and brush around with a great white light. Cyrus looked alarmed as he frantically gazed around him. "What's the meaning of this?" he cried. What are you doing, you little brat? Dervil smiled. How does it feel? See this hatchet right here? It's been blessed by the priests of Castilla, crafter of chaos. That's a magic weapon? Cyrus screamed with rage. That's right, and once you're caught, you can't escape. It will run you down until it kills you. Dervil let go of the hatchet, and rather than falling to the ground, it hung in the air in front of her. Suddenly, the blade shot toward the necromancer like an arrow from a bow. It was so fast that Cyrus did not even have time to flinch. The hatchet slammed into his chest and drove into his ribs. He was thrown down to the ground by the force of the impact and lay perfectly still, unmoving, with her hatchet buried in his chest.
Tales of Mithrym are written by Jimmy Clephane. Mithrym is a fantasy world built for the Dungeon Room role-playing game system. To find out more about the world of Mithrym, or to try out the game, go to www.mithrym.com.